Chapter 2. Tull, a son of a nightclub mogul, had his men working as quickly as he'd promised. He'd been on his toes waiting for the email the whole day. Then it came in at around midnight. Thien picked up his cell phone hurriedly. Not many details, only a report on the incident. A silver Porsche Boxster S overshot a curve on Rutcher Road in front of the Supreme Court and hit a woman on the footpath, killing her on the spot. The driver's name was Visanu, the youngest son of Chan Chai, the goldsmith godfather in Chinatown. The deceased name was Miss Torfan, 23 years old, born in... At the end of the sentence, the organ inside his left chest contracted violently that he had to bend over to lessen the pain. Thien grabbed a medicine tray on the bedside table and threw the pills into his mouth, followed by a big gulp of water. He curled up on his side as his body broke out in sweats. He waited until the painkiller started to kick in. He had been preoccupied with the information that he forgot to take the immunosuppressants. Finally, he could breathe again, in and out, until his heart resumed its normal beats. He pondered, his eyes moving in the dark. He wanted final proof. If it wasn't what he thought, he swore to himself to end his investigation right away. Making up his mind, he rose to his feet and left the room. He stealthily headed along the stairs that led to the second floor. As he reached his father's office at the right end of the hallway, he peered open the door and sneaked in. Thien turned on the flashlight on his phone and swept it across the room. He knew where his father locked his important documents, in a drawer of his desk. No problem, he knew where the key was hidden. This room had been his playground since he was a little boy. Lifting a garland-footed tray on the Buddha altar, he found 4 keys underneath as expected. Thien crouched down and put the key one by one in the drawer until he heard a click. The man who was playing thief grinned when he accomplished. He opened the envelope that was supposed to hold the documents he was looking for, but found nothing. He frowned in frustration. Did his father keep them somewhere else? He couldn't turn up the whole room. It would have taken him the whole night. He sat crestfallen on the floor at his failure. Once he rose to his feet again, a sharp pang shot through his left chest until he buckled. The phone that was acting as a flashlight fell on the desk with piles of paper scattering all over it. The white light from the phone cast onto one document with a red stamp saying classified. Could his dad be so careless, or did he leave it there accidentally? Whatever the case was, luck was on his side. Thien swallowed thickly while picking up the piece of paper, the list of organ donors. Miss Tharfan. It can't be real. He covered his mouth with one hand as nausea hit him and made him want to throw up. He quickly picked up his phone to take the photo of the document, then sneaked out of his father's office before anyone could see him. He had convinced himself that if he got his proof and it didn't turn out the way he'd expected, he would terminate his search for the truth right away. What he hadn't thought about was, what if it turned out to be exactly what he was looking for? Now what? Days ago, the young man born with a silver spoon into the family of a retired deputy commander-in-chief was so dejected that even Lady Lalita, who wasn't home much, sensed it. The woman looked at her youngest son, who was stirring his boiled rice with shrimps as if something was bothering him. "You're not enjoying the food, my dear? Should I tell the maid to make an American breakfast for you?" Hearing his mother, Thien looked up and gave her a strange look for a moment, then shook his head. No, it's all right." "Then eat up. Don't play with your food. It will get cold." The young man nodded and put the rice in his mouth like a robot. The lady let out a heavy sigh, knowing her son too well. He must have been at the end of his patience being stuck at home for months. "Thien, do you want to go out?" one eyebrow cocked with a surprise hearing the question from his mother, who cared for him more than anything else in the world. "Can I?" "You can, but I don't want you to. What if there's an emergency?" One sentence ended the hope in the patient's eyes. His body that puffed up with hope a moment earlier deflated. "I guess so." Diane couldn't help but voice his disappointment. He knew his mother was concerned about him, and he'd been acting out for the past 2 years. Today he would just comply with her request to repay her kindness. "But if you really want to take some fresh air, I'll let you go under one condition. Chat will go with you." She was talking about the driver who wasn't on duty today. The handsome face lit up like a blossoming flower getting water. He rose to pull her plump body into a hug before she changed her mind. "Thank you so much, Mom." Lady Lolita smiled and pinched playfully at the underside of his arm. "Don't you act like a baby with me." "I'll take a shower." He rushed out immediately and heard a scold from his mother. "Don't run like that. Don't forget to take your medicine after the meal, too." Diane closed the door of his room with a thundering heart. He fetched the phone from the nightstand and read a message from Tull, the godfather of blackmailing, that came in again last night. The address of Miss Thorfinn. The young man let out a long sigh, absent-mindedly skimming over his left chest. He knew what he was doing was absolutely nuts, but now her heart was in his body and he was the new owner, so he could do anything he wanted to find out more about her, couldn't he? Diane picked up a high-end shopping mall to stroll, except that the one accompanying him this time was a middle-aged man in a dark grey safari uniform instead of a cute girl. The young man stretched lazily after going in and out of various shops and bought enough to fool his company. He then went into a coffee shop and asked Uncle Chat to get in line and buy him a cup of frappe chocolate with a caramel topping. He sat down on a soft couch, crossing his legs languidly and smiling at the driver, who looked back over his shoulder with suspicion but complied to Diane's request. The younger man who conned his driver placed big, expensive shopping bags from various brand-name stores on the table to shield his face from the older man's line of sight. Finally, when Uncle Chad returned to the table with a cup of frappe chocolate for the little master, he found that Diane was gone. Diane ran into the main street. He looked left and right, then waved at the bright pink taxi that stopped right in front of him. Less than 5 minutes after telling the driver his destination, his phone was bombarded with incoming calls. The numbers were Uncle Chat's, Mom's, and Taichin's, who had returned to his provincial hospital. The news spread fast. The young man swiped the sweat off the screen and punched the power off button so that those on the other lines wouldn't be able to track him down. After almost an hour, the pink taxi had cut through Bangkok's traffic into Nonthaburi province, where more housing estates were standing shoulders to shoulders. The one he was looking for was situated in a narrow soi where most houses were townhouses. Diane asked the driver to circle around until he found the address he had memorized. It took them a while, but finally they found a single-family home, around 40 square meters, enclosed in old run-down cement walls. He gave the driver 1,000 baht, a generous amount for his service and time, and stepped down from the taxi to stand in front of the rusty rattle metal gate. "Here we are." He swallowed thickly, gazing through the gate towards the house. The 2-story home, built with mixed wood and cement, looked desolate, as if it was abandoned. Yet, a moment later, a loud bark was coming towards him. A brown, purebred Thai dog was running out from the back of the house with perked-up ears. He jumped and scratched the gate with his 2 big front legs, sending the startled visitor backward. "Me! Shut the fuck up!" The barks fucking hurt my ears. One plastic bucket was flying from inside the house, flying over the dog's head and hitting on the gate with a loud clang. Thien was stunned as if he had fallen through a rabbit hole and landed in a place where he didn't know how to carry himself. He thought about walking away, but it was too late. An elderly woman that could be someone's aunt in a loose-fit blouse and a robe was already coming towards him. "Who are you looking for?" she barked. Thien was dumbfounded hearing the question. His mouth was agape before he could find his voice. Stop stuttering. If you're here to sell some bloody water filters, then get lost. I can't even afford the fucking food." The auntie placed her hands over her hips, ready to fight. "No, He held on his breath, then blurted out. "I'm P. Thorfons, Jr." It was the auntie's turn to be dumbfounded. The woman in her 50s racked her eyes up and down the lean young man in trendy, expensive clothes. "What do you want from her? That girl was nothing but ashes. If you want to see her, then go to the temple." Even if he didn't know the donor in person, he got angry hearing degrading words. "Are you her cousin?" "Damn right I am. I'm her aunt, and her dad was such a loser. If I didn't adopt her, she would be whoring herself for a living right now." The woman ran her mouth. "Too bad, though. She didn't even repay me, but volunteered to be a fucking teacher for some Karens. And as soon as she came down the hills, a goddamn car hit her. I was lucky the driver was loaded and he paid me big time." Thien was frowning deeply at this point. Even though he didn't want the said driver, his former friend, to be locked up in jail for life, he couldn't help feeling bad for the victim. "So you got the money and you didn't think about suing him?" Talking about how money can buy human dignity. "What are you saying, son of a gun?" The woman got frustrated. "Someone got to eat. Going to court will make you lose more money. It's not like fun would come back." "It sounded like you don't love her at all," he blurted out, and the woman barked another curse at him. "So, you're from the fucking Foundation? You snowflakes look at the world through a rose-tinted lens. Just open your fucking eyes already. Here, the rich get richer and the poor get fucking poorer. Just a few coins thrown my way didn't hurt their pockets. If you want to preach, like all the other friends of yours did, then get fucking lost. I'm not afraid of going to hell, but having no fucking money to buy me food." It wasn't just him who thought Thorfinn's death was all in vain. Thien tried to calm down and reminded himself why he came here today, and it wasn't to fight with this woman. "I'm not from the Foundation. I told you, I'm her junior at the uni." "What uni? She only graduated from high vocational college." He knew he made a mistake, but fixed it right away. "I meant the same college." Luckily, the woman seemed uneducated enough not to pay too much attention to the differences. "Then why are you here?" He thought of some excuses. "P. Thorfinn borrowed some books from me and—" "I see. So you want them back?" She sneered. "Just some books? Go take what you want before I take them to a garbage shop." Thien let out a sigh of relief that finally he was allowed inside the house. He stared at the big Thai dog, who growled from behind a plant pot, fearing to be jumped and get bitten. The plump auntie swayed towards the back of the house, where a dirty, cluttered storage room was. "All her stuff is in those boxes. Get lost once you get your stuff. What a fucking waste of my time. I've got a business to run." Her old cell phone rang, and he learned that she was an underground lottery seller. The young man minded his own business. He crouched down on the cement floor covered with dirt and sand, not caring if his clothes would be dirty. He lifted away bags full of clothes with his thin hands until he found a large carton box with Thorfinn's personal belongings. His heart started beating faster as he opened it. His eyes caught a plastic picture frame with a photo of a sweet young woman smiling in a flower field that blossomed against the first light, with thin mist as a backdrop. He frowned as his chest felt tight, as if that organ was skipping a beat. I know. You want to say this woman is you, right? He cursed slightly until his heart calmed down, and went on searching through her stuff. Thien picked up an identity card with a dried bloodstain over it. No one had cared enough to clean it off. Sang Dong Foundation. That's all she got. Did you find what you came for? The nasty auntie shouted and made him jump out of his reverie. Got it. He answered just to shut her up and looked back at the belongings in the box, grabbing a few textbooks and one handmade notebook. As he emerged from the storage room, the only remaining cousin of teacher Thorfinn was staring at him with an accusing look on her face. Let me see what you're taking. The accused was furious, but thrust the books at her, almost hitting her wrinkled face. Just this, I have no need from that pile of garbage. To you, they're just garbage, but to us, whatever can be sold is money. She waved her hand to dismiss him. Now get out of my face, it's my nap time already. The metal gate slammed in his face, a son of an influential military officer, and the clang numbed his brain for a moment. If it was a few months earlier, he would have given her a lesson for her insults, not caring if she was an elderly woman. Thien snorted and kicked the air, frustrated. He should have ended his investigation here and now because it was utterly useless. Today's operation felt like a failure still. He learned nothing more about Thorfinn than what Toll's goons had dug out for him, except the fact that she came from an underprivileged family and had a nasty cousin. She grew up in such dire condition. What could possibly drive her to become a volunteer teacher? She couldn't gain much out of it, not making money for sure. Thien stopped in his track and shook his head, pushing the muddled thoughts away, but it was too late. He knew himself too well. Once he had a question, it would be hard to leave it alone. The young man wiped the sweat from his forehead. He walked kilometers under the afternoon's scorching sun to find a taxi on the main road in front of the estate entrance. He had to go home and report his presence. He'd been gone far too long, and within less than an hour, his lady of a mother would have forced his father to deploy a military search operation to find him all over Bangkok. In an engraved octagonal wooden pavilion amidst the lush garden, the youngest son of a powerful military officer was lounging and playing a game on his iPad on a canvas bed. His cell phone was crushed on purpose. After he had escaped from Uncle Chat, the reluctant warden appointed by his mother days earlier, he got home in a taxi with the lamest excuse. I ran into a friend. He went to show off his new car, so I went to test drive with him. Lady Lalita scrutinized her son from head to toes. She wanted to punish him when she heard the next sentence. I've stopped by the gas station and was about to call you, but I slipped the phone down the drain. He showed her the evidence. The dead phone screen was foggy from the moisture. She didn't buy it, but her son had come back unscathed, so she just let him off the hook. Still, he was banned from leaving the house and suffered a series of complaints from his mother, even if he knew she was worried. Thien lazily turned left and right. After a moment, he turned off the game and launched a new browser to search for something. Slender fingers were typing almost automatically. Seng Thong Foundation. He scanned the information and saw there was nothing more than the mission statement. He clicked the words volunteer teacher and frowned with amazement the more he read into it. This is a different world, a world where someone born on the bed of roses like him had never been a part of. He never realized that there were many young people out there wanting to do a volunteer job to help others without getting anything in return. Fakes. He sneered in contempt and chose to believe what he'd always believed. A maid's call was coming from outside the garden. She ran from the house with a mobile phone in her hand, telling him that it was Trajan. The future doctor was calling the house numbers because he didn't have any chance to leave the house to buy a new phone yet. "Hi, Pite, what's up?" he said, bored. "I'm calling just to listen to a whiner." Trajan chuckled when the younger man cussed at him. "You're calling just to pull my leg? I'm hanging up." He was about to cut the line, but the other man objected. "Wait, talk to me. I want to tell you that next week I'm having my days off. I'm thinking of taking someone to buy a new phone." "Are you coming back to Bangkok? That's awesome. I'm bored out of my skull here." It was only Trajan who could bail him out from Lady Lolita. "But first, do you have anything to fess up?" Trajan changed the topic. Lady Lolita had told him about the rascal's Houdini stunt, and he even came up with the supporting evidence. Trajan didn't buy into his story, though. It was only a smartphone and something a millionaire's son could easily destroy. No, nothing." The answer sounded feeble. "What is it that you're keeping from me? I hope you're not thinking of doing something bad right now." The end bit down on his lips, almost hard enough to draw blood. He hated when someone caught him red-handed, damn it. "Nothing bad. If you don't believe me, then I can't help it. You keep up with your tight-lipped act. Wait till I return to Bangkok. I'll squeeze the truth out of you." Then Trajan went quiet as if he was interrupted. "The nurse just told me I have a meeting with medical professors." "Okay, then go prepare for your meeting." The end took the chance to end the conversation, but his eyes caught a glance on the iPad screen that was still active. The question he'd been pondering slipped out. "Can doing something for someone without wanting anything in return really make you happy?" If he could only see the expression on the other man's face, he would have never asked the question. Trajan's eyes widened as if he'd just heard the scariest horror story. The older man cleared his throat and tried to calm down. He didn't know what went in the head of Trajan, the self-centered, high-flying young man, but he knew he should give a truthful answer rather than a prankish one. "It was like when I told you to make a donation, money or some other things, to orphanages. You told me you would just give me the money because why bother going there yourself?" The future doctor then went quiet, as if he was trying to form a sentence. "I'm just trying to say that you have to try to know what it feels like. If you never try, then you'd never know whether doing something for others can really make you happy." The younger man pressed his lips tight, then uttered a low whisper. "Maybe it's me who's never been happy." Because he had never done anything for someone else. Trajan smiled lightly, hearing the naive words. "No, you just don't know what it's like for other people, living their lives in a different world." Before the end found his voice again, Trajan excused himself to join a meeting. He dropped his head on the canvas bed, tired and confused. What is his world like? And what's it like on the other side? Pite's words were confusing and hard to understand, or this must be how medical students' mind worked. Always complex. A deep frown appeared on the smooth, handsome face. Even if he wasn't selfish, he was someone who cared only about himself. Money could buy him worldly, physical happiness, but what about the happiness within? Light brown eyes stared aimlessly out of the vast mansion full of luxuries and comfort. The servants were always on service, heaven on earth, everyone wanted to set foot in. His father, mother, his brother, and sister were all prominent figures, always appeared on social events, and had a spot in national newspapers. He was alienated, different. All the fame and having an entourage weren't his goal. After some reflection, he found out that it was one small happiness he'd been missing. It was a short compliment from his nanny when he fixed a broken RC toy car when he was 11 that made him grin from ear to ear. He was happier than when he was getting the complete Gundam set from his father. "You're out of your mind, you fool." Thien slapped a hand on his forehead and cursed at himself. He got off the bed, rushed into the house and changed into running gears, hoping the run would cure his scattered thoughts that seemed to get worse and were driving him to the brink of insanity. The man on recuperation moved back to his own bedroom on the second floor after he was able to walk without assistance. The room was big enough that the corner was set up as fully equipped home theater with full gears of cinematic pleasure, such as 3D goggles and the latest version of Xbox. Thien stretched his legs on a long soft couch and dried off his wet hair with a towel. A 100,000 baht flat-screen TV was showing a movie from a cable station he randomly picked a moment earlier. He chuckled, amused, watching a televised charity where the rich smacked on their diamond sets and took the center stage to sing out-of-tune songs. He kept watching the high society circus, enjoying how the fake praises were given left and right, and sipping on his freshly made orange juice instead of his usual beer. But when a name was announced, he almost spat out the juice. A middle-aged woman in a pastel pink silken dress, adorning a large Siamese ruby with diamond accent necklace, was stepping onto the stage, making it awkward. He didn't want to laugh at his mom, but couldn't help wondering how many millions she donated to be able to sing 5 songs in a row. He suppressed his laughter and fetched a remote control on the small glass table to turn the TV off, but he knocked into a pile of old books on the table. They were the ones taken from the shabby house of teacher Thorfinn. He heard that having dead people's belongings in the house would bring bad luck. He shrugged. Thorfinn wasn't dead because her heart was still beating inside of him. But as soon as he thought about where to discard them, keeping them here was just useless. His eyes landed on a notebook with peculiar patterns on the cover. He picked it up and speculated it for the first time. The hardcover notebook was wrapped in colored mulberry papers, decorated with bright color papers in star shapes, small and big. Intricate letters that were glued on it said, "A Tale of 1,000 Stars." A tale? Like bedtime story for children? His light brown eyes rolled left and right as he pondered, and he finally opened the book. Her handwriting was teeny, with round heads of the alphabets as cute as buttons, and suited a dreamy girl like her. It was easy to read. Once upon a time began the life of a little girl named Thorfinn. Thien's mind tickled. This must have been her life's tale. He shouldn't have pried into someone's personal life, so he closed the book. A piece of paper slipped and fell down. No, not a paper, a photo. The faded picture radiated power. A man with broad shoulders and a straight back, as solid as a rock under a green camouflage uniform, was carrying a gun and hiking up a hill. His profile, hidden in a shadow, was looking up at the first light that peered down through the thick canopy, as if he was seeing the faintest glimpse of hope waiting above. Thien's whole body went numb, yet his heart was pounding, too fast to calm down. His whole chest was in pain, as if someone had pounded it with a sledgehammer. The young man dropped down on the couch and curled up in anguish. He tried to calm down and focus by breathing in and out, inhaling deep to get the air into his lungs until the pain subsided. Thien turned on his back and looked up at the empty ceiling, his hand still clutching the soldier's photo. This was someone ingrained in the deepest memories of his heart.